The jungle was silent. Jake Carver wiped the sweat from his forehead. His oxygen scanner beeped weakly, warning him it had less than 10% left. His boots sank into the soft green mud of Zavira Prima, wild planet no human had fully explored yet. Thick vines hung from the tall blue trees, glowing slightly in the misty light. He had been lost for 3 days. His small ship had crashed after a lightning storm. The radio was dead, the food pack was empty, and the jungle, it felt alive. Not just with animals, but like it was watching him. Jake forced a laugh. "I swear," he whispered to himself, "if some giant alien babe walks out right now and gives me food, I'll marry her." It was just a joke. He was tired, half delirious. But somewhere, deep in the trees, something heard him. Branches creaked above. A low, slow rustle moved across the leaves like a shadow crawling forward. Jake paused. His joke faded. His instincts kicked and something was near. He slowly reached for his emergency flare gun. He had one flare left, one signal, one chance then. He heard it. A voice, soft, deep, and feminine, spoke from the shadows. "You speak of marriage so easily, little one." Jake froze. That wasn't a hallucination. From between the trees, a shape moved. No, a figure. Tall, curvy, powerful. She stepped out of the mist. She was at least 10 feet tall. Her skin was a smooth silver blue, her hair long and braided like crystal wires. Her eyes glowed soft violet. She wore armor made of leather and bone, shaped to her body like it had grown on her. In one hand, she held a curved spear. In the other, pouch of fruit. Jake's mouth dropped open. "You're real." She tilted her head and gave a slow, mysterious smile. "You offered yourself. I accepted." Wait, what?" Jake blinked. "You seek food," she said calmly. "You offered companionship in return. That is a sacred exchange." "I was joking." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but her smile grew wider. "So was I, or maybe not." She tossed the fruit pouch to him. Jake caught it, hesitated, then tore it open. Inside were glowing orange berries. He sniffed, sweet, fresh. He popped one in. His mouth, juicy, delicious, delicious, and safe. He ate quickly, too hungry to care about pride. The giantess leaned against a tree. "You are strange, human, small, soft, yet brave to walk this jungle alone." Jake coughed. "Wasn't a choice. My ship went down. I was trying to find a way out. There is no way out. Not through the jungle. The trees will swallow you. The beasts will smell your weakness. You would not last another sun cycle." Jake looked up at her. "Then why help me?" She stepped closer. He had to look far up just to see her face. She placed 2 fingers under his chin, tilting his head slightly. "You gave me a compliment. In my culture, that is the start of a bond." Jake's voice cracked. "So, because I said I'd marry a tall alien woman, you think we're bonded?" "I don't think, little one," she said. "I know. Your words were clear. My name is Zaira, and now you are mine." Jake stepped back. Okay, that's a lot. "Look, I'm grateful, but I didn't mean it." Zaira turned. Slowly, her thick braids swinging. "You may rest in my shelter. You may eat my food. But in return, you must stay." "Stay." She looked over her shoulder. "In this jungle, nothing is free. Not even a joke." Then she walked into the shadows. Jake stared, holding the fruit pouch tight. He should run, should find the rescue beacon. But something inside him didn't want to. He followed, and in the distance, high above the trees, other glowing eyes opened, watching, waiting. The human had made a flirty joke, and in the world of the giantess, That meant everything. Asterisk Jake followed Zaire through the thick jungle, half confused, half scared. Vines brushed against his arms. The glowing plants lit the path with soft green light. Behind him, the jungle felt like it was closing, in watching. Him, breathing with him. Zarya didn't speak. She moved fast but smooth, like a hunter. Her tall body shifted easily through the undergrowth. Her braids swung behind her back, tied with small bones and feathers. Jake struggled to keep up. Finally, they reached a small clearing. There was a large stone structure covered in moss. Smoke rose from the top. Someone had been using fire. Zaira turned and pointed. "This is my shelter." Jake stared. "You live alone out here?" "For now," she said, stepping inside. "You?" "May enter." Jake followed. The inside was simple but safe. A fire burned gently in the center. Thick animal furs covered the walls. There were fruits, dried meat, and herbs hanging from vines. It smelled like wildflowers and warm spices. Zaira sat down, motioning him to sit on the opposite mat. "I gave you food," she said. "Now we speak about the bond." Jake cleared his throat. "Listen, I didn't mean to insult your culture. I was joking when I said I'd marry an alien." "I didn't know anyone was listening." Zaira nodded. "Words are powerful. In my tribe, a compliment is more than sound." "It is a promise." Jake leaned forward. "But I didn't know that." She looked at him seriously. "You are still responsible." Jake sighed, rubbing his face. Okay. Let's just slow down. I don't want to disrespect you, but I didn't come here to get married." Zaire raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you still here?" Jake opened his mouth to answer, and stopped. The truth was he had no better option. The jungle was deadly. His supplies were gone, and she had saved his life. "I'm tired," he finally said. "Hungry, lost. I crashed here by mistake. I just want to survive." Zaira nodded. "Then make a deal with me." Jake blinked. "A deal. I protect you, feed you, keep you warm. In return, you stay near me, speak to me, learn from me, and accept the bond slowly." Jake hesitated. "So, be your guest, be my companion," she corrected. "No chains, just choice. But once you agree, you cannot break it." He stared into the fire. His heart was racing. It was crazy. She was huge, alien, dangerous, but she was also beautiful, intelligent, kind in her own strange way. And most importantly, she was his best chance to survive. Jake nodded slowly. "All right, I'll stay. For now." Zara's lips curved in two. A small smile. "Good. Then eat more." She handed him a roasted meat strip. It was warm, spicy, and better than anything he'd tasted in days. He looked up at her. "You don't talk much, do you?" "I talk when needed," she said. "But I listen always." Jake laughed a little. "You know, you're kind of scary, but also kind of amazing." Her glowing eyes softened. "Say that again." "What? The compliment?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "You mean?" "You're amazing." She leaned slightly closer. "Yes." Jake smiled, half nervous. "You're amazing." Zaira closed her eyes as if soaking in the words. "You speak well, little one." He blushed. "I didn't mean to flirt that time." "I know," she whispered. "That's what makes it more real." Suddenly, a loud howl echoed outside. Jake jumped. "What was that?" Zara stood. "Stay inside." She grabbed her spear and moved to the doorway. Her muscles tensed. She sniffed. "The air," Jake whispered. "Is it dangerous?" Zaire nodded. "Night beasts, drawn to heat and sound. They can smell you from miles away." Jake's heart pounded. What do we do? Zaira looked back at him. You trust me? I protect what is mine. She stepped out into the darkness. Jake moved toward the doorway, but stayed hidden. Through the shadows, he saw Zaira standing tall. 3 glowing red eyes flashed between the trees. She roared deep and powerful. The jungle went silent. Then, slowly, the red eyes backed away. Fading into the dark, Jake sat down, heart racing. Zaira returned. Minutes later, calm, unhurt. They will not return tonight, she said. Jake looked at her in awe. You just scared them away. I claimed you, she said. They know not to challenge me. He smiled weakly. Guess being claimed isn't so bad after all. Zaira smiled back. Sleep, human. Tomorrow, I show you what it means to belong. Jake lay down on the fur mat. He was still confused, still unsure. But one thing was clear. This was no longer just survival. This was the beginning of something deeper. Asterisk. The sun on Zavira Prime rose slowly, casting orange and purple light through the thick jungle canopy. Birds with crystal wings sang strange songs. Insects the size of a hand buzzed over glowing flowers. Jake Carver woke up on the fur mat, warm and full for the first time in days. For a moment, he forgot he was on an alien planet. Then he rolled over and saw Zaira 10 feet tall, silver blue skin, kneeling by the fire, roasting something. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Morning already. Zaira looked at him with calm eyes. You slept deeply. That is good. Jake stretched. Smells good. What is that? Sky beast eggs, she said, boiled with fireroot spice. Good for strength. Jake chuckled. You know, on Earth, we just have cereal. Zaire frowned. What is cereal? Jake laughed harder. It's, never mind, she handed him a bowl, and he ate gratefully. The eggs were spicy, soft, and oddly delicious. As he ate, he looked around the shelter. It wasn't just survival, it was a home. She had tools, maps, hunting gear, herbs hanging like decorations. How long have you lived out here? He asked. Zey Ra took a bite of her own food before answering. 3 years. Jake's eyes widened. Alone. I was in exile, she said softly. Punished for a choice my tribe didn't understand. Jake looked at her carefully. What choice? Zaira looked into the fire. I showed mercy. Jake didn't ask more. Something in her voice told him not to after breakfast. Zaira led him outside. Today you'll learn, she said. If you stay, you must become useful. Jake blinked. Learn what? Survival. Language. Our ways. You are not a pet. You are a partner. You earn it. Jake nodded. All right, let's do it. They spent the day in the jungle. Zaira showed him how to use the vines to climb trees, how to trap small animals without killing them, and how to find clean water using glowing roots. She was patient but firm. Jake messed up, often fell, slipped, got stung, but she didn't laugh. When he cut his hand on a branch, she took his arm gently and rubbed crushed yellow leaves over the cut. Jake stared at her face while she worked. Her eyes were so focused, she had small marks on her cheeks, tribal tattoos, or battle scars. You're really good at this, he said softly. Zaira didn't look up. I lived by learning. You must, too. Jake smiled. You're amazing. She paused. Her fingers stopped moving. You said it again. What? The compliment? She whispered. Jake chuckled nervously. It's true. Zaira looked into his eyes. Each time you speak like that, I feel something. Jake's smile faded. Her voice wasn't flirty. It was serious, honest, like a truth that had weight. He stepped back. Zaira, I'm just saying how I feel. But I still don't understand what this bond really means to you. Zaira straightened. In my tribe, a bond is sacred. 2. Spirit's link. It is not like human love or dating. It is deeper. When one hurts, the other feels it. When one is lost, the other calls. Jake swallowed. That's a lot. She nodded. Yes, it is. They walked back to the shelter in silence. That night, Jake sat by the fire while Zaira polished her spear. He looked at her quiet strength, her sharp beauty, her mystery. He didn't know if it was fear or attraction, or both. I have a question, Jake said. Zaira didn't stop polishing. Ask, you said you were in exile for showing mercy? What happened? She looked into the fire for a long moment. Then she answered. My sister was war leader. She ordered us to burn a human colony ship that crashed on the outer forest. But there were children inside. I refused. Jake's eyes widened. You saved them? Yes. I carried them back to the humans. My sister called it betrayal. She cut my braid and banished me. Jake looked at her half-braided hair. That's why it's tied in bones. Zaira nodded. Each bone is a choice I made here, alone. But now, I am not alone. Jake looked down at the fire. He realized something. Zaira didn't just save him for food or fun. She was lonely. She had risked her life for humans once, and been cast out for it, and now she had found one who saw. Her really saw her. Jake whispered, Thank you for saving me. Zaira looked at him slowly. I think, she said quietly, I was waiting for someone to see me. Outside, the jungle howled again. But inside the stone shelter, the fire burned warm. Two very different beings sat in silence, not enemies. Not yet lovers, but something was growing. A connection. A bond. Asterisk the sky cracked with thunder. Jake stood near the stone shelter, steering up. A glowing object moved fast through the clouds. A small ship. A human ship. His rescue beacon had worked. Zaira walked up behind him, silent as always. She followed his gaze, her eyes darkening. It is your kind, she said. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, they must have tracked the emergency signal. Zaira didn't say anything for a moment. Then, in a calm voice, she said, They will try to take you. Jake turned to her. They're my people, Zaira. I can talk to them. I can explain. No, she said firmly. They will not understand. They will think I have captured you, that I hurt you. Jake frowned. But you saved me. You fed me. Protected me. Zaira placed a hand on his shoulder. It doesn't matter. You are human. I am not. They will never see past that. Jake wanted to argue. But he couldn't. He knew she might be right. He had grown close to her more than he ever expected. She was no longer just an alien giantess. She was his guardian, his friend, maybe even more. But Earth Command wouldn't see it that way. The ship landed with a deep humming sound. Steam hissed as the ramp opened. 4 soldiers in white and gray armor stepped out, holding rifles. Behind them came a woman in a blue command suit, Captain Sarah Wynn. Her sharp eyes scanned the area. Jake walked forward, hands raised. Hey, I'm alive. It's me, Jake Carver. The team lowered their weapons slightly. Captain Wynn stepped closer. Carver. Thank God, you've been missing for 16 days. We thought you were dead. Jake smiled. I almost was, but someone saved me. Captain Wynn raised an eyebrow. Someone? Zaru stepped out of the trees. The soldiers raised their weapons instantly. Wynn shouted, Stand down. Zaru walked slowly, proudly. She held. No weapon, but her presence was strong. She stood beside Jake like a mountain made of silver and grace. She's not a threat, Jake said quickly. Her name is Zaire. She saved me. I was starving. She gave me food, shelter. Wynn's eyes narrowed. Is she holding you here against your will? Jake shook his head. No, I chose to stay. One of the soldiers muttered. She's one of the jungle tribes. I've read reports. Giant warrior women. Dangerous. Jake raised his voice. She's not dangerous. She's loyal. She even saved children from a human crash years ago. That's why she was exiled. Wynn looked at Zaira, then at Jake. Why didn't you leave earlier? Jake hesitated, because he didn't want to. But how could he say that? I felt safe with her. He finally said, Zey-Ra, looked at him softly, a faint glow in her eyes. Captain. Wynn stepped back. All right. We'll bring you back for medical checks. You can give a full report later. As for her, Jake held up a hand. No, I'm not leaving without her. Silence. The soldiers tensed. Zaira's eyes widened slightly. Captain Wynn frowned. Jake, she's not human. Bringing her aboard could cause problems. Political ones. Security ones. Jake stepped closer to Zaire. She claimed me. I chose to stay. I care about her. If you force me to leave, I'll fight it. One of the soldiers whispered, He's gone native. Zaira's voice came low and sharp. I will not give him up. He is under my protection. The jungle grew quiet. The air thickened with tension. Weapons were ready. Words had failed. Jake stepped between them all. No one shoots. Not here, not now. He looked at Zaira. You said I had a choice. That this bond is built on truth. He turned to Captain Wynn. Then let me speak mine. I'm not leaving her. Zaira's hand brushed his shoulder, not pulling, just present. Wynn sighed. You understand what you're saying? Jake nodded. Yes, I'm staying. Wynn stepped back, thinking. Then she pulled out a small device. Then we do this by the book. We file for cross-species guardian status. You'll be interviewed, observed. But if she's truly not a threat, Jake smiled. She's not. Zaira tilted her head. What did you say? Jake looked at her. Said I'm not leaving. Zara's voice was quiet. Then you honor the bond. He looked up at her glowing eyes. I guess I do. Captain Wynn gave him one last look. All right, Carver, we'll send updates. But know this, Earth won't accept this easily. Be ready for a storm. Jake smiled. I've already survived one. The soldiers stepped back. The ship rose into the air and disappeared into the clouds. Jake turned to Zaira. We bought time, he said. Now we have to prove we're more than just human and alien. Zaira smiled softly. We are something new. And the jungle listened, because something rare had begun. A love that crossed stars. The next morning, the jungle didn't feel calm anymore. Birds didn't sing. The wind didn't move the trees. Even the glowing flowers had dimmed. Jake felt it in his chest, something was coming. Zaya stood at the edge of the clearing, eyes focused on the sky. Her spear rested in her hand, and her muscles were tense. Jake walked up behind her. You feel it too. Zaira nodded. Yes, my people are coming. Jake frowned. Your tribe. How do they know where we are? Zaira looked toward the mountains. We are so linked by the old ways. When I formed a bond with you, they felt it. Jake swallowed. Will they be angry? Yes, she said. By midday, the sound of drums echoed through the forest. Jake had never heard drums like these deep, vibrating through the earth like a heartbeat of giants. Trees trembled, birds fled. Zaira stood tall, her body glowing slightly in the sunlight. She wrapped leather bands around her arms and chest. On her shoulders, she painted ancient white symbols using a crushed powder. Jake watched in silence. What do those marks mean? He asked. They are for truth. For standing your ground, she answered. They are worn by those who speak from the heart, even when it could cost them everything. Jake looked down. Will they attack me? Thea met his eyes. Not if I stand between them. An hour later, the warriors arrived. 7 giant women walked out of the jungle, each taller than Zaira, with glowing tattoos and deadly weapons. They wore armor made of crystal scales and bones of alien beasts. At the center stood a tall woman, with short silver hair and cold violet eyes. Zaire whispered, "That is Vakrella, my sister." Jake blinked. "That's your sister?" "Yes, she is war leader now." Vakrella stepped forward. "You broke exile, Zaira. You bonded with a human, and sent a call through the sacred path. Explain yourself." Azera didn't move. "He was dying. I saved him. I gave him shelter. And he gave me something back." Vakrella sneered. "A weak human cannot offer anything but trouble." Jake stepped forward. "She's wrong. I didn't ask to be saved, but I'm glad she did." Vakrella turned her sharp gaze to Jake. "So you are the male who dares to bond with my sister?" Jake stood straight. "Yes, I care about her. I didn't plan it. But now I wouldn't." "Walk away." The other giantesses murmured, some in anger, others in surprise. Vakrella raised her spear. "This bond goes against our law." "There is only one way to prove its strength." Zaira stiffened. "No." But Jake stepped forward. "What way?" Vakrella smirked. "A trial of heart and honor. If your bond is real, you will survive. If not, the jungle will eat your bones." Jake looked at Zaira. "What is it?" Zaira whispered, "You must face 3 tasks. Alone. If you fail even once, the bond is broken." Jake's face went pale. "And if I pass, then we are accepted forever." That evening, Jake sat by the fire, nervous. Zaira knelt beside him, slowly braiding a small lock of his hair. Jake whispered, "I've never done anything like this." Zaire looked at him gently. "You do not have to win with strength. Win with heart." "That is our way." Jake nodded, swallowing hard. "You believe in me." "I chose you," she said. "Before the trial, before the jungle. I knew." Jake took her hand. "Then I'll fight. For you, for us." Zaira leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Then go. The first trial begins with sunrise. At dawn." Drums sounded again. Jake stood in the middle of a sacred ring of stones. The warriors stood around him, faces cold. Zaire watched from a distance, arms crossed tightly. She could not help him now. Vakrella raised her arm. First trial, the leap. Of faith, she pointed to a cliff. Below was a canyon filled with glowing vines and fog. A giant creature stirred below, snarling, hidden. "You must jump," she said, "and survive." Jake stared at her like she was crazy. "Jump into that." "Yes," Vakrella said. "If your spirit is true, the vines will catch you." Jake looked at the vines, then at Zara. She nodded once. He took a deep breath and jumped. The wind screamed. His heart pounded, then dashed softness. The vines wrapped around him gently. Glowing tendrils held his body like hands. The fog swirled. He was safe. From above, Zaira exhaled in relief. Vekra's eyes narrowed. One trial passed. 2 remain. Jake climbed out of the canyon, breathing hard. He didn't know what the next trial would be, but one thing was clear. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was fighting for her, for the bond, for the love that began with one flirty joke, and now stood against an entire tribe. Jake's muscles ached. His hands were cut. Dirt was in his hair and blood on his shirt. But he stood tall. He had survived the first trial, the leap of faith. Zyro watched from the hill, her eyes never leaving him. She said nothing, but her silence was heavy with hope and fear. Vekrala, her war leader sister, stepped forward again. Her face remained cold, but there was a small crack in her voice now. "Second trial," she said. The fire path, she pointed to a path winding through the trees. The air shimmered with heat. Small fires danced on the ground. Between the flames moved thin, snake-like creatures with glowing fangs, flirthorns. "You must walk through. Without weapon or shield," Vekrala said. "No screams. No running. If you panic, you burn." Jake wiped sweat from his face. He wanted to quit. His body screamed for rest. But then he looked up. Seyra stood still. Her hand rested over her heart. Jake remembered her words, "Win with heart." He nodded and stepped forward. The fire path was alive. Heat blasted from the ground. Each step felt like walking through a furnace. Jake moved slowly. One foot, then the next. The flare-thorns hissed. One slithered close, its fangs dripping with blue acid. Jake froze. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. The creature sniffed him, then slithered away. Jake kept walking. He reached the middle. The heat became worse. Flames licked at his legs. He clenched his teeth. He thought of Zyra's smile, her calm voice, the way she called him little one like it was a secret name. He walked through fire for her, and finally he stepped out, burned, shaking, alive. Zero rushed to him, holding a soaked cloth, and pressed it to his arm. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," Jake muttered, though his legs were shaking. Vekrala approached. For the first time, her voice softened slightly. "You are stronger than I expected." Jake smirked. "I get that a lot." She ignored the joke. "The final trial is the hardest. It is the trial of the soul. You will face it alone." Jake nodded, though he had no idea what that meant. That night, Jake sat by himself in the center of the stone circle. The stars above glowed brighter than usual. No one spoke to him, not even Zyra. It was part of the trial. He had to wait. At midnight, the jungle changed. The trees bent. The air grew still. Mist rolled in. And then, a creature appeared. It was not real, not fully. It was made of smoke and shadow. It had many eyes, many mouths. It was fear itself. Jake stood slowly. The creature whispered with 100 voices. "Why do you fight? Why suffer? She is not your kind. She will live for 2 centuries. You will die in decades." Jake backed up. The creature stepped forward. "You are nothing but a joke. A small man who got lucky. Leave now. Go home. Forget the bond." Jake clenched his fists. "No," he said. The shadow growled. "You will regret it. You will grow old while she stays young and strong. She will move on." Jake shouted, "Maybe. But I still choose her." The shadow paused. Jake's voice shook, but stayed firm. "She gave me her truth, her care, her loyalty. I'll give her everything I have, even if it's not much, because love doesn't need to match, just needs to be real." The shadow hissed, but it faded. Jake stood alone in the silence, and the stars seemed to shine. Brighter morning came. Jake stepped out of the stone circle, pale and quiet. Vekrala waited with her warriors. Zaya stood behind them, her hands clenched tightly. Jake looked at them all. "It's done." Vekrala studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she knelt. One by one. The giantess warriors bowed their heads. Even Vekrala spoke softly. "You have passed. You are no longer just a human. She handed him a small, glowing marca tribal sigil carved from crystal. "This is your name now," she said. "Carve on, the one who burns and stands." Jake looked at Zeyra. She was crying, but her smile lit up the entire clearing. He ran to her. She opened her arms wide, and he collapsed into her embrace. "I thought I lost you," she whispered. Jake looked up at her. "You never did." That night, a great fire burned in the middle of the jungle. The tribe danced. Drums echoed. Meat roasted on tall spits. Glowing wine was shared. Zara and Jake sat together. Hand in hand, the bond was no longer a secret. It was celebrated. Two souls from different worlds, now joined in front of all. 3 months passed. Jake Carver no longer looked like a lost explorer. His beard was trimmed short. His clothes were a mix of human fabric and alien leather. A tribal crystal mark hung from his neck carven, the name Zairu's people had given. He now stood tall, confident, and known across the jungle. And beside him, always stood Zaira. Their bond was not just accepted, was respected. Zaira had regained her honor. Bakrala had named her as the voice between tribes. A role meant to connect their people with outsiders. Jake was called the Flamewalker, the first human to ever survive the 3 trials of soul. But not everyone in the galaxy was ready to celebrate. A month after the trials, Earth Command sent a delegation ship to the planet. Ambassador Halverson stepped down the ramp with a tight smile. "Mr. Carver, we've read your report. Impressive and unusual." Jake stood with Zaira behind him. "This is more than a survival story. We've created something new here, a real connection." The ambassador looked up at Zairu, still towering, still beautiful, still dangerous. "She's large," Jake chuckled. "And smarter than half of Earth's leaders." Halverson cleared his throat. "Be that as it may, Earth needs guarantees, treaties, rules. We can't just let humans and alien giantesses start bonding randomly." Zira stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. "We do not bond randomly. We bond with purpose." Halverson blinked. "She speaks English now." Jake nodded. "She learned it faster than I learned to hunt," Zara added. "If we build trust, there will be peace. If you try to control us, there will be silence." Halverson looked at Jake. "She threatens easily." Jake smirked. "She protects quickly." Over the next weeks, meetings were held. Tribes of giantess warriors came from deep in the jungle. Earth diplomats came from space stations. There were arguments, fears, warnings. But Jake and Zaira stood together through it all. They showed what the bond meant, not just romance, but loyalty, understanding, and balance. And in time, something changed. The first Earth-Savora Alliance Treaty was signed. It allowed peaceful contact, cultural exchange, and even joint villages where humans and Zairan giants could live together. Jake was named the first honor-bonded human ambassador. Zeyra became matriarch of the Outer Circle, a new title that had not existed before. A bridge between the ancient and the new. They built a home at the edge of the jungle, a tall wooden tower mixed with Earth tech and Zairan tradition. Gardens full of glowing fruits surrounded it. Wild animals stayed away. The trees bent slightly, as if watching with care. Inside, laughter lived, and love. One night, Jake sat by the fire, staring at the stars above. Zara joined him, wrapping her long arm around his shoulders. He leaned into her. "It started with a joke," he said. She smiled. "A flirty one." Jake grinned. "Yeah, I didn't mean it." She tilted her head. "You didn't mean to say it, but your spirit meant every word." Jake looked into her violet eyes. "Do you ever wish I was more like you?" She touched his cheek gently. "You are like me, where it matters." He kissed her hand. "Even if I grow old." Zaira nodded slowly. Then I will remember you every day after, and speak your name until the sky forgets how to shine. Jake's eyes watered. He whispered, "Then I'm glad I spoke those stupid words in the jungle." She laughed softly. They weren't stupid. They were fate. Years passed. New bonds formed between other humans and Ziranes. Some failed. Some changed everything. But Jake and Zaira's bond became legend. Songs were sung. Children born of both worlds spoke of the first joke that turned into forever. The jungle, once feared, became known as the forest of flame and heart, and in the center of that wild world, two names were carved into the stone shelter where it all began. Jake Carver, Zaira of the broken braid above it. The words he complimented her once, she claimed him forever. Together, they claimed peace.